What's good, folks? Family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth to another episode of Disguise Coverage, the only podcast that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin, presented by the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. That is One Pie Pizza. Find the online menu in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. I'm your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro 2_ANT. Find me on Blue Sky at proant. No underscores there, just PROANT. In this edition of Disguise Coverage, I have got a killer headache that makes me want to crack my skull open and relieve the pressure. But I'm trying to trudge through that so we can talk about some positional archetype changes that we might and probably will see in the Buffalo Bills defense under Jim Leonhard, and likely need to see in the Buffalo Bills defense under Jim Leonhard. I think this will be, hold on, I got to adjust this first comment from Joey, who says, the tree is gone. It must be February. Yeah, I've taken the big tree and moved it over. I still need to take the little one and put it here and fully decorated with February stuff. But I've also got some sports memorabilia that I kind of want to hang. I have an autographed Andre Reed jersey that I think I might put here. And I also have an autographed French Connection Sabres jersey with some other autographs on it too, like Pat LaFontaine. So I might do the Reed one here and the Sabres one here, so the tree would get in the way. So the background's a work in progress in a good way, but I appreciate you noticing that the tree is gone. Yes, we're going to dive into a fun conversation in tonight's episode. Positional archetypes, archetype changes in the Buffalo Bills defense under Jim Leonhard. If you are a regular or sometimes viewer of this show or listener of this show, you've probably heard me say positional archetypes a million times. That would be on the Disguise Coverage bingo. I've talked about it for years, how it's impacted the defense at multiple levels, how it's been good, how it's been bad, how I've been frustrated by it, what would be nice to see change, so on and so forth. And with the injection of a brand new defensive coaching staff and with a new scheme in place with some more similarities than, I think are being given credit for. Still, we have a new defensive scheme. We have a new defensive coordinator. We have a new defensive philosophy and identity and base front structure, preferences in coverage structure, preferences when it comes to situational play calls, new preferences when it comes to game planning, how to attack an offense and how to put them into disadvantageous situations. With all of that comes archetype changes up front for the Buffalo Bills and maybe a little bit on the back end too. So we're going to be diving into that in this episode. As always, questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, anything and everything you folks got, feel free to put it up into the live chat. Super chats, as always, get priority because I respect the monetary donation and the color distracts me from whatever I'm reading on my notes and brings me kind of back up to the screen. I want to grab some comments really quick before we start to dive into some things here. Appreciate you, Bob, for being first in and saying what's up. And then the comment here, yeah, I was on WGR this morning. It was pretty cool. I was on with Jeremy and Joe, so I'm glad you heard that. Thank you very much for the feedback for that. Phil says equal blueberries. Prove it. I don't know if I can. You just got to take my word for it. I also see some of the highs and the what's up for me in the chat. Highs, what's up in the chat, all that kind of stuff. To kind of I want to talk a little bit about the Bills defense under Jim Leonhard before we start to dive into, I should say, the specific archetypes that we're going to talk about in this episode. I got 4 specific ones we're going to dive into, but I kind of wanted to talk about just the defense in general. At this point, I've talked for over several hours of airtime on Jim Leonhard, including the reaction show on Saturday, right after the news dropped of his hiring. Last Tuesday on the back end of Disguise Coverage, I talked about why I wanted him, why I liked him, why I thought he'd be good, so on and so forth. So again, you're going to have that 3-4 odd front structure when in base. And we talked about, his version of it is that tight front. So you're going to have a defensive end on the inside shoulder of a tackle. You're going to have a zero technique head up on the center or shaded on the center. And then you're going to have a 4-eye on the other tackle. So that's how you identify the tight front: a 4-eye, 0, and a 4-eye. We talked about that. Again, base front structure. That is what he is. The Bills defense is a 4-down defense previously under Sean McDermott. Jim Leonhard plays a good chunk of nickel and a good chunk of sub package stuff. We are still going to see, or you're still going to see things you're more accustomed to seeing with the Bills defense when it comes to like 4-down structures, right? When it comes to 4-down fronts, nickel defenses, you're still going to see that. The main difference, there's a couple, but the biggest difference you're going to see within that is, and especially at Wisconsin. So Jim Leonhard, when he would go into nickel, you'd have 4 down and then you'd have 5 defensive backs for nickel, but you'd have 2 down linemen, 4 linebackers, and your 5 defensive backs. So it would be a 2-4-5. And what he would do is your edges would essentially be 2 outside linebackers, so 2 of the 4. And then your interior defensive linemen, the 2 down linemen, were more like defensive ends. So even if you take something as basic as that, right? You look at the Bills. Would the Bills have the type of personnel to execute that? It's more of traditional or true, like, okay, if you got guys on the outside, it's more like traditional edges, and then the guys on the interior would be more true interior defensive linemen. Maybe you could kick Greg Rousseau in on the inside or Michael Hoyt if he's healthy. We'll see how healthy he is. But I do think there's more similarities, or not, I shouldn't say similarities. I don't think it's going to be completely uncharted territory for this defense like it may seem to be. I think people are, kind of seeing 3-4, brand new defense. Do we have the personnel? Who's not a fit? What's going to happen? I put a tweet out on Saturday after I did the live show of like, okay, even if you just ran a true 3-4, this is what it would look like for the Bills. And it's not ideal, right? And you have some questions at specific spots, which is going to tie into this episode that we're talking about here. But it's not a complete lost cause. It's not like this defense needs to be completely overhauled, like they have to scrap all of the personnel, they have to jettison the majority of guys, and they have to bring in all new people. That's not what is the case here. And that's good that it's not the case, because they don't have the draft capital or the financial capital to be able to pull that off. What they do have is open roster spots, like we've talked about on the show, where they were going to need to add additional bodies to the roster, even if the defense stayed exactly the same. Sean McDermott, Bobby Babich, whatever it was. Even if everything stayed status quo as is, you were still going to need to add bodies to this defense. So you've got open roster spots. You've got a new defense. You had to add bodies anyway. Now you just have to add bodies in a different way with a different archetype and a different type of skill set or role or traits or play style to kind of tie all that in together. The first piece I want to talk about here. Oh, my headache's coming back. First one I want to talk about, a nose tackle. So this is the first positional archetype that I want to talk about. So this is somewhat of a similar idea to the one tech conversation last year and, maybe even the year prior, depending on how early you were on that train or not. But, the first positional piece, I want to start on the defensive line, start on the innermost spot, and that is at the nose tackle. Now, I think Deon Walker can play in this role. I think it's more of a moonlighting or a rotational aspect more than a true nose. I think he had a good rookie year. I think he far surpassed my expectations of what he would be as a rookie, especially as a run defender. But I just don't think for Deon Walker, his build is suitable to be a regular nose. And it's not necessarily like a hugely negative thing, but he's very tall. He's very big. I really appreciate how he's kind of reproportioned his body composition and his weight, since being an NFL player. But it's just hard for him to anchor. It's hard for him to win with leverage. He's so much taller than everybody he's going up against, so guys are naturally going to get under him. And then, because of how he's built, he's not the type of guy who's going to drop the knee, who's got that lower body bend. JP Acosta, who's been on this show before, always talks about him as being the Iron Giant, which is, I think, is a funny reference, but it's kind of true. He is from a play style standpoint. And I said this on GR this morning, and I'm going to reiterate it now. What I'm about to say, I don't want it to sound negative, because I think when you hear the phrase finesse player, people think that means soft. And that's not what I'm saying. But Deon Walker is more of a finesse player. He is more of a penetrator, win with a quick swim, penetrate, win with a move, not necessarily a beat 'em up ass kicker type of guy. That's what I think you need on the interior of this defense, specifically if you're going to play some odd front stuff. Again, I think Deon Walker can play a little at the nose, especially if you're getting zone stuff. And he showed a good propensity for recognizing down blocks and being able to defeat certain gap scheme runs. Again, he had a good rookie year. I'm not saying he didn't, but get yourself a true nose tackle. The verbiage I keep using is a stone. Get yourself a stone that you can drop in right over the center, somebody who's used to a beat 'em up type of play style. You need a sandpaper type of guy. And it does not have to be Vita Vea. It doesn't have to be 330 pounds, 350 pounds, some Goliath or some Godzilla, King Kong type of dude. It's more about the play style. It's more about the skill set, right? It can be a smaller nose who's 310, 315 pounds. It doesn't have to be some mammoth type of dude. It's more about the skill set. It's more about the play style. The example that I continue to use here of who I'm looking for in this example, and he happens to be an unrestricted free agent again this year, like he was last year, is Roy Lopez. Roy Lopez was with the Cardinals in 2024. He was a UFA last offseason. I wanted the Bills to bring him in as a one tech. He ended up going to Detroit, played well for Detroit. He is a UFA once again. I think he could be affordable, somebody that you can get for like $3 to $5 million. You plug him in on the interior, get a good rotation, let him eat bodies, eat space, beat up dudes on the inside. I think what's also nice with him is, or not even, that specifically him is Roy Lopez is a guy that I'm targeting. One, because I think he can do the job, but two, unfortunately, as we have to, play this game every offseason with the Bills, I do think he'll be cost effective. It's somebody you don't have to break the bank for, and you can get this type of role. Again, he's a plugger inside. He's tough to displace. He's able to reduce the surface area and or hold his ground with lean and leverage. He's got good block recognition across multiple schemes, but he's also got enough burst and juice to be effective upfield. He can drive guys into the backfield. He can penetrate a little bit. And overall, he's just a guy who's going to occupy blockers and disrupt flow. Again, a sandpaper type of guy, a grit, a guy that's just a pain in the butt to play against. And I think he'll be cost effective. But say you don't like Roy Lopez, fine. That is the type of archetype they need at nose to put in rotation with Walker, which one, I think helps Walker from having to deal with all the beat 'em up type of stuff on the inside. And I also think that frees up Deon Walker to do kind of a little bit of everything across the defensive front, a la, what he did at Kentucky. You could put him at nose. Maybe you could put him in a 1, you could put him in a 2 or a 2I, you could put him in a 3, you could put him in a 4, you could put him in a 4I on the inside shoulder of a tackle, you could put him in a 5, maybe even kick him out a little wider. I think if you get that rotational nose, it frees up Deon Walker to kind of be a little more of the unicorn that he potentially is because of his size and the athleticism that he has. Again, he's a huge mountain of a dude. I thought he played admirably as a one tech for the Bills in his rookie year, especially because that's not really what he was at Kentucky. But I don't think that, putting him as a true nose or having him be that plugger on the inside or that type of role, again, they're not going to ask him to be a plugger. They're still going to have him penetrate and kind of win in that way. But I do think you need more of a displacement mitigator on the interior, somebody who won't get turned, somebody who won't get moved. And I just think that's a hard ask of him down in and down out because of his build. The build that allows him to be kind of that unicorn player is also the same type of build that limits him in certain ways and allows him to not anchor at times and will cause him to get displaced, horizontally or kind of get driven back a little bit as guys get underneath him, guys get torque, guys have leverage, kind of those pieces. Oh, we got to stop. Jason, you are awesome. Here again, and throwing out super chats again. Appreciate the hell out of you, Jason. Jason says, man, it's going to be nice to see our linebackers involved more in our pressures. The secondary is really going to have to step up as a result. Who would you like us to target at free safety? I don't know if Rapp is that guy. I am going to put a pin in this because safety is one of the archetypes we're going to talk about in this episode. And I will specifically be talking about more of the quote unquote free safety type of position or a deep safety type of role. So once again, it's like you peeked into my notes and I see where you're at and I appreciate you. I'm going to take a sip of ginger ale because the caffeine helps with my headache a little bit. So hold. Okay. Now, also see this question here from Mally who says, how do you feel about TJ Sanders? He's going to be in the next archetype conversation. So it's like you're peeking into my notes too. You kind of know where this is going. And Roy says John Franklin Myers as a nose tackle. John Franklin Myers, I hate to keep saying this, he's going to be in the next segment for another archetype that we're going to talk about. But yes, he has some versatility, which is part of what we're going to talk about in the next one. So I like this. Everybody's kind of getting there. So again, there are pieces already on the roster that are present that can work in Jim Leonhard's defense. And I should say that too, with all these positional archetypes that they're going to need to add or change or whatever, however you want to verbalize it. It's not because the current players aren't a fit. It's not because they don't have the guys or the body types or the play styles or the skill sets to run Jim Leonhard's defense. That's not what's happening. They have some guys that can fit already. They just need more of some supplemental guys or auxiliary guys for specific roles, with specific play styles or skill sets mixed in to kind of bring everything together holistically and maintain the versatility and the hybridized nature of everything. Oh, I see that comment that just came in from Pumpkin and the Goose. Thank you very much. I appreciate you checking out my segment on GR. I'm glad you liked it. Thank you very much for the feedback. I appreciate that. I don't want to bring the comment up because I feel like it's too pat myself on the back, especially because I'm by myself. It's like, oh, look at this nice comment someone said about me, but I wanted to acknowledge it. So thank you. So yeah, again, this is a scheme that I think, and specifically for Leonhard, Jim Leonhard is the type of coach who does a great job setting his players up for success mentally and schematically. He's the type of guy who wants to give you the tools to succeed. Oh, you're right, Jared. Ginger ale is caffeine free, but maybe it was a placebo effect because my headache's been feeling better since I drank the ginger ale. Good call, Jared. I'm a fool. I literally looked at the can and it says caffeine free. Man, I'm a dunce. I am not thinking great, but my headache's kind of going away. So I'm going to act like it has caffeine in it. So we're going to ignore this comment and we're all going to pretend like this ginger ale that I'm drinking has caffeine in it. Man, I'm an idiot. Yeah. So the style of Jim Leonhard, again, we've talked a lot about the schematic benefits and we'll continue to talk about as we go forward, throughout this offseason. But he's a guy who knows how to maximize what he has with his players physically and mentally. Again, schematically, what do you do best physically? What type of player are you? What type of play style do you work best in? Cool. We know how to weaponize you and how to wield you. But he also does a good job building them up mentally, giving them the tools to succeed on game day. The capacity versus capability thing that Sean McVay talks about. Capability is, you can give someone an assignment and they can go and execute it. Capacity is the ability to build on that and kind of think for yourself and be able to operate in the moment for something you maybe haven't been trained on or, given the keys to before already in practice. Jim Leonhard has talked about in his coaching clinics and different pieces, the idea of you can expose players to the multitude of scenarios they're going to face in games. But on game day, you're outside those white lines. So you have to count on guys to step up and make plays in positive ways. You have to give players room to grow and room to think. So he's not going to, the example, it's funny because he's, got some Rex Ryan in him in terms of that tree and stylized play. But I think so many fans are still gun shy from Rex Ryan coming in and taking over that cold front defense that was such a good 4-down type of defense. And everybody was like, oh, well, surely he'll keep Jim Schwartz. Okay, he didn't keep Jim Schwartz. Schwartz is gone. It's like, okay, well, surely he'll still kind of tap into what they did under Schwartz. And it was like, nope, he's going to take a bunch of round pegs and try and fit them into square holes and everything's going to go sideways. Jim Leonhard is not that guy. He's not going to take a bunch of players and try to make them bend to his scheme. He's going to play what is best for this team. And, this year, it might be more 4-down structure stuff. It might be things that the guys on the roster are already comfortable with. Maybe they don't feel like they're able to bring in the right bodies from a financial situation or a draft situation where they can run the full gamut of what Leonhard wants to run, right? So maybe, I don't want to say he waters it down, but maybe he kind of narrows down the menu a little bit to play to the players that he has and the personnel that he has and kind of what he can get to in the best way. I trust Jim Leonhard, holistically to be able to put the guys in the right place to set them up for success. Again, this is another kind of quote tied to him. What can you effectively get your guys to do on a consistent basis? Anything more than that is a waste, and you're not really doing your players justice as far as what you're trying to get accomplished. If you're not doing that, you're not putting the game in their hands to let them win for you. He is not going to put guys in disadvantageous positions for them or for the team or for himself. So I do think he will adapt things around the players. But again, the current players that they do have under contract and on the roster, because they've got a bunch of guys that are on the books financially, but not on the roster anymore. They do have some guys still on the roster that can fit what he wants to do. But again, you need to supplement that or buttress that with some of these archetype pieces that we're talking about in this episode. And again, it starts with nose tackle, right? So get yourself a true stone that you can drop in the center of your defensive line, can play a true nose, play a zero, head up right on the center, or can play a one tech or just be able to be available inside if you want to go heavy with some other dudes. You just need that type of skill set. Again, I thought they needed more of that skill set last year as a one tech. I sat here and I pounded the table for Roy Lopez last year. I am pounding the table for Roy Lopez again. He continues to be my example, one, because he fits the play style and the skill set that I think they need there, but also, again, I think he will be cost effective, and not cost effective in like a bad way, but cost effective in a good way. Those type of dudes are available on the market to some degree. They don't cost a ton. And I think he'll fit right in that rotational role, right on the interior. Get yourself a stone, drop him in there. There's a possibility you could get this in the draft as well. I know a lot of people like Big Citrus, Dominique Orange out of Iowa State. I've watched him a little bit. That could be fun. I know people like Corleone, the defensive tackle from Cincinnati. You got Lee Hunter, defensive tackle from Texas Tech. So, there are options in the draft. If you want like some heavy hitters on the interior in the draft, there are options there. And there's some options in free agency too, but I kind of just go for that known quantity. Roy Lopez, I think you can get him on a 1 year, $3.5 to $5 million deal. Maybe you go 2 years, but you bring him in, let him kind of eat those ugly down reps, those ugly down snaps, in rotation with Deion Walker, which helps unlock Deion Walker, keep him fresh to do some more of those fun type of unicorn things that he can do with his size and skill set and what he kind of is. Gage says, I'd love them to draft a nose tackle late and sign one out of free agency. How many nose tackles compete for a roster spot? That's what's tough, right? Because I think you're going to play Walker at nose. I think you could play him in multiple spots on the front. He's a weird one for a fit in that type of defense, right? Like you kind of play him in a 4-eye, you kind of play him in a nose. I think if you're getting multiple nose tackles, that to me would indicate that you're going to play Walker in more of a 4-eye and kind of some of the interior stuff in your 4-down looks. I would expect one true nose to make the roster here and be in rotation with Deion Walker. But if they go with multiple, that to me would signal they're going to rock with multiple and then use Deion Walker in some kind of other way on the defensive line. That's a good question. Oh, I appreciate you. Russ is here. Russ says, I'm not listening to the podcast because I'm watching old school wrestling and listening to old tunes. That said, watch Michigan State center Matt Goldman. He's awesome, but not like the Miz. I appreciate all the references here. And Russ, I appreciate you. And I'm sorry you have to watch Michigan State football. That sounds rough. Gage says, isn't Walker too tall? Yeah, but that's not going to really kind of stop anywhere. Or stop being a problem anywhere on that defensive line. Like anytime he gets guys under him, it's going to be a problem. And that's not just going to happen like, on the interior, kind of on the outside. Like it's going to happen to him regardless. Dude is 6'7". He's too tall in a good and bad way everywhere, unless he's going up against certain offensive tackles, but that's not going to happen regularly for him. So anytime he lines up on the interior, he's going to have, the opportunity in a bad way for dudes to get under him and kind of drive him and move him and do all that. That's just, you dance with who brought you, and that's who brought you. He's going to get out leveraged a bunch because of how tall he is, which is part of why I don't want him to have to constantly deal with that at nose where guys can get under him a little bit, or where he has to, how much does he have to 2-gap? How much is he single gap? And are they playing a gap and a half? What are they kind of doing on that interior? How do they kind of play it? Are they playing it, like an odd front structure where it is more gap and a half or 2-gapping, or are they playing it more, hey, 5 down, everybody's still 1 gap and we're getting upfield and attacking? We'll see kind of how they go from there. Oh, I got to stop again. Jason, appreciate you. You're extremely generous. Jason, another super chat. And Jason says, so Ant, are you saying that Jim Leonhard will have a number of packages, player specific, to fit in the players we have, or until players become more comfortable with the transition? Yeah, I think he will have sub packages and defensive plays, and more so calls that are a fit to what the guys they currently have are, right? Like, so for instance, right, and as I talked about at Wisconsin, we'll just use this kind of example, right? When he would go nickel, it was a 2-4-5. So you had 2 down linemen, 4 linebackers, and then your 5 defensive backs, right? And then what we talked about on your front, it would be 4 down, but the guys on the interior were defensive ends. The guys on the outside were linebackers, right? And the type of guys that they would use, Zach Bond, Andrew Van Ginkel, right? Those are the type of guys he would wield in base, but also in nickel. The Bills don't have guys like Zach Bond. The Bills don't have guys like Andrew Van Ginkel. So can you still run that kind of stuff when you don't have those body types? Potentially, right? And maybe, maybe Dorian Williams can do some of that stuff. I don't think he's the pass rusher off the edge that either of those guys were at Wisconsin, but You look at that and it's like, okay, do we have some of those guys who can fill those roles? Do we have a guy who's similar to Wisconsin Zach Bond or Wisconsin Andrew Van Ginkel, to kind of use that example, or, Wisconsin Jack Sample or Wisconsin Nick Herbig, like, right, those type of dudes. And if you don't, then you have to sit and look and go, okay, can we still play that way? Can we still run those types of packages, those type of plays, those type of calls? And that's the question that you ask. And then I trust him to evaluate, you know what? We still can run that type of stuff with the guys we have. Or I trust him to be like, we can't do that. So when we go nickel, it's going to be a true 4 down front. We're not going to do 2 defensive ends on the interior and 2 outside linebackers on the outside. It's going to be more of, Greg Rousseau to Ed Oliver to Deion Walker to Michael Hoyt or something like that. So yeah, I trust him to kind of set those guys up for success and kind of build it around. He has his identity, he has his philosophy, and he has the scheme that he wants to implement, but he's going to build that around the players that he has or look for guys to bring in to fit what he wants. He's not going to set anybody up for failure or set anyone up to be in a disadvantageous spot. Good comment. Good question. Russ says, I'm not sure if you watch Texas A&M Cassius Howell, but he'd be fun off the edge for Leonhard. His game against LSU was awesome. He's actually one of the first edges I have earmarked. Him and your boy David Bailey. Just kidding. I know you're not a huge fan of David Bailey. Plant the flag on that early as we were texting about that earlier today. I have Cassius Howell kind of pegged to kind of watch him early, mainly because I saw somebody who I respect put him in a mock to the Bills like a month ago. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. No, but I'm behind on prospect watching at this time of year. I will be middle of February. I will be grinding extremely hard. But no, I have not started the edge grouping yet, but I'm going to make a note of Howell. I already had a note on Howell, and I'm going to make it even more of one now because I respect you and know how much you know. Jason, another super chat. Thank you. Jason says, what do you think is the most important role that must be filled or addressed in Leonhard's scheme? Oh, sheesh. Man, if he wants to do what he did at Wisconsin, it's the linebackers. If he wants to do more of what they did in Denver, I think it's nose tackle and defensive end. And I'm going to talk about defensive end more in a minute now. Very good question. Very good question. Yeah, so that's nose tackle. Kind of, Gage says everything but strong safety and corner. But yeah, so in a nutshell, that's who Leonhard is. That's what I want with this nose tackle spot. I know this is a mix of a segment talking about the positional archetype and nose in specific, but also just kind of what Leonhard is, who he is. It's going to be a lot of fun conversations going forward with that. The next one that I want to talk about kind of ties into John Franklin Myers, who was mentioned earlier, and a bit of Jason's question a minute ago. The next positional archetype that I expect changes for, and I think the Bills need changes for, is defensive end. I'm going to take another sip of my ginger ale. Everybody bear with me. Oh, I know there's no caffeine, but it makes me feel so good. So, defensive end in this defense, in Jim Leonhard's scheme, system, all that type of deal, you are looking for guys who can play in that 4-eye role, right? So, guys who can play on the inside shoulder of the tackles. But you're also going to be looking for those guys to have, versatility to be able to play like a 3-tech or a 1-tech in a 4-down look. So these guys are going to have versatility. They're guys who can play defensive end in a 4-eye in odd front looks, right? And that could be the tight front where you just have maybe 3 down or maybe 4 down technically, but you're in a tight, so you're 4-eye inside shoulder of the tackle. Or it could be Denver Broncos 5 down front type of deal, right? And every time I think of the Denver Broncos, defense, or I put that out there for folks, I always want everybody to envision what you got, right? So you've got your bookends, right, are Jonathan Cooper on one side and Nick Bonito on the other. So Jonathan Cooper is your bookend on, we'll say, for the defense's left. John Franklin Myers is the 4-eye inside of him. DJ Jones is the nose tackle, sometimes kind of like a 1, depending on how he aligns. But DJ Jones is that stone in the center. So that's 3 guys of the 5. Then to the right of DJ Jones is Zach Allen, who's aligned in more of a 4-eye. And then outside Zach Allen is Nick Bonito, right? So if you're thinking about the Bills' defensive ends right now, right, the defensive ends are going to be more of those 4-eye guys. So think, again, the easiest way to think about it, because I know not a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, I remember the Wisconsin defenses from 2017 to 2022. Think about the Denver Broncos this past year, right, which I think enough Bills fans have familiarity with in one way or another. Think of Zach Allen and think of John Franklin Myers, right? Guys that line up on the inside shoulder of the tackles in odd front looks. And those same guys who, when the Broncos go 4 down, they can kick those dudes inside to a 3-tech or a 1-tech. Okay. So think of that. So think of Zach Allen and John Franklin Myers and that positional flexibility and versatility, right? Can line up inside shoulder of the tackles in a 4-eye in odd front looks, or kick inside as more of a traditional defensive tackle from a Bills sense in 4-down looks, right? Do the Bills have a John Franklin Myers? Do the Bills have a Zach Allen? I'm not talking about talent level. I'm talking about that type of versatility and flexibility from an alignment standpoint and play style standpoint. Kind of, but also not really. This is where I think a kind of big question comes about for this defense. So my positional archetypes that I think the Bills need to go after, there's 2 for me right now. They're both UFAs. I would love for the Bills to sign one or both of them. One is John Franklin Myers. The other is David Onyemata from the Atlanta Falcons. He's somebody I liked with his time in New Orleans. These are 2 guys who, again, can line up at multiple spots along your front, odd front or even front. And Onyemata's even got some nice reps at nose tackle, which is crazy because he's like 300 pounds. I think JFM's listed at like 288. So Onyemata's a little heavier at 300. But Onyemata's a type of dude who he's lining up, as like a 3-tech or a 1-tech in 4-down looks. He's lining up in a 4-eye. He's sometimes lined up outside of that a little bit. They're lining him up at nose. Atlanta did some cool stuff with him, and he was effective across the board. But the point with him is somebody who can wear multiple hats, line up at multiple spots on your front. Like Onyemata's a type of guy who, okay, you can line up at nose and handle your own against the run, but you can also penetrate and get some pressure from that same spot and do all those things across, multiple other spots in an odd or even front look on the defense. Cool. Similar thing for JFM, right? Put him in a 4-eye in the odd front looks, kick him inside to a 3-tech or a 1-tech in your 4-down stuff, right? That's the type of defensive end that you need. I think the Bills kind of have that right now. Like you can do that a little bit with Greg Rousseau. And Rousseau is an interesting one too. Like there's times where when they would go with some odd front stuff, like he would kick inside to a 4-eye. And granted, it was more adjustment based on kind of like emotion or personnel or kind of what was happening offensively. But, Groot can kick in there a little bit. Although I do think majority of the time Groot is going to be one of your stand-up bookends a la, Jonathan Cooper and Nick Bonito. And then you look at Michael Hoyt. I think he's going to be another bookend a la Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper. But Hoyt's another dude who you could kick him inside into a 4-eye. You could, on passing downs, like you could line him head up over the center, put him in a 2-point stance. Kind of everything that you were going to do with Michael Hoyt in McDermott's defense, you can do in Jim Leonhard's and then some, because it naturally, it's more seamless because of what Hoyt was with the Rams in their odd front structure and what he can be with Jim Leonhard in his odd front structure. So I think that's a very seamless thing for him. But you got your bookends there with Oliver and Rousseau or with Hoyt and Rousseau more often than not. When you kick inside to the defensive ends, Gage, I see your comment where you say like, are Oliver and Hoyt the same player in this kind of defense? I want to bring it up because I think that's like a fun question, because kind of like, I think more often than not from a base standpoint, Michael Hoyt would be one of your bookends and Ed Oliver would be a 4-eye. But in known passing down in distances or situations, you could get a little fun. Like I like the idea of putting Ed Oliver as one of the bookends, one of those outside edge players, putting Ed Oliver in a 2-point stance and letting Ed Oliver hunt, or putting Ed Oliver in a 2-point head up on the center and letting him do some kind of stuff from that regard, or in that regard, I should say. So I don't think they're the same kind of player, but I think you can align them similarly and give them similar responsibilities, while still using them differently, if that makes sense. But that's a really good thought. I like that. And I think that's cool. But again, that ties into, again, that defensive end conversation. Because say you were building out the Bills front. Say you were going, again, let's talk that Bronco structure, right? Cooper, JFM, DJ Jones, Zach Allen, Nick Bonito, right? If you're doing that for the Bills right now with who they have on the roster, let's pretend Michael Hoyt is healthy. it's Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, Deion Walker, TJ Sanders or Landon Jackson, Michael Hoyt. That defensive end spot of TJ Sanders or Landon Jackson, I don't love that. And that ties into this positional archetype as well. I don't know how much of a fit TJ Sanders is going to be in this defense, aside from like the sub package 4 down type of stuff. I'm interested to see kind of what weight they play him at or what they have him get to. Again, he's not going to be a nose. Like he just doesn't have the play style or the skill set to be a nose. It's just not going to happen. I mean, Walker does a little bit, but even Walker, it's tougher for him because of his play style, because he's a finesse guy. He just happens to be a finesse guy in the body of a mountain. Sanders is not going to be a nose. Or he could be, but I wouldn't want him at nose, I should say. So the only other spot is for him to be, one of the 4 eyes or one of those defensive ends who can also kick inside on the interior 3-tech or 1-tech in sub-package situations, right? But again, I don't love that. And I think his season last year was unfortunate. He got banged up. Other guys got banged up. He's playing like traditional defensive end in even front structures, and it kind of, I think, set his development back a little bit. He was having to wear a hat that he wasn't prepared to wear, and he struggled at times, had some positive flashes at times, but overall, I think, an underwhelming rookie season. I don't think that means they should be out on him or he's done, but I see I could convert TJ Sanders to offensive guard. He'd be a light guard, though, like 295 pounds or 300 pounds. Yeah, Sanders is a questionable fit, and I wasn't too high on Landon Jackson as a prospect. I just don't like dudes who don't have a lot of bend and are rigid, and he doesn't have a lot of bend and he's rigid. But, he could work out maybe at a 4-eye, especially if they play him a little heavier like they did at his early days in Arkansas. I don't think he's got the right build and play style to be a stand-up guy off the edge. Could happen a little bit, maybe if he lightens a bit, but I just don't think that pure compression style of rusher is going to be ideal coming off the edge. I think you need a little more athleticism. You need a little more juice, a little more bend to be, one of those bookend edge rushers in an odd front. And not saying it's out of the realm of possibility, but I think it's, for me, like if I had to, I'd ask Landon to, get a little heavier like he did at Arkansas. Let's put you in a 4-eye. Again, he's a run defense type of guy. He uses his hands. He uses his length. He's physical. Let's play you in a 4-eye and kind of go from there. But even then, it's still like, how much versatility do you have with Landon Jackson and TJ Sanders? What's the ceiling? What's the floor for each of those guys? I think both of them are more unknown quantities than they are known. So for me, kind of going to Jason's comment earlier or question, what do you think is the most important role that must be filled or addressed in Leonhard's scheme? One of the ones I mentioned was, that defensive end spot, because I think it's questionable right now. I think Ed will be fine. Ed will be fine as a 4-eye who can do a bunch of stuff in sub packages. I don't know how I feel about Sanders. Well, I do. I don't feel great about Sanders as a 4-eye, and I don't feel great about Landon Jackson as a 4-eye. Could each of them do it? Sure. Could each of them work out there? Sure. Do I want to hang my hat on that for this season? I do not. So I think this is one where I would like a little bit of a splash, here. And it's not going to be huge or crazy from a monetary perspective. It might be more than they can afford. We'll see. But give me JFM. Give me David Onyemata. 2 guys who can each rock at a 4-eye. Onyemata can even kick into nose a little bit from time to time at odd front looks. And then both those dudes can also kick inside on 4-down fronts and rush as a 1-tech or a 3-tech and still play the run and give you some pop as a pass rusher as well. Penetration, physicality, block recognition in those dudes, veteran presence. Onyemata's a little bit older. He's 32 right now. I think he'll be 33 when the season starts. But both of those guys are that type of play style, that type of body type, right? This is what this episode is. It's you giving some specific players that could work, but also kind of get you thinking of, okay, that's what that play style should be, or that's what that skill set should look like, or that's what that body type should look like. So JFM, David Onyemata, both of those guys are what I would look like, or what I'd look for at defensive end, in terms of the archetype or in terms of them specifically. And if you're thinking about that right now, the Bills don't have that on their roster. They do not have a JFM on this roster. They do not have a David Onyemata in this roster. They do not have a Zach Allen on this roster. Like, they don't have those type of guys. Derek says, does Solomon factor in any of this? He's going to have to be one of your bookends on the outside. Pure juice, pure athleticism with some bend and some moves. Maybe you kick him inside and do some stuff as a sub package guy, but he's really more, I mean, in an ideal world, you get him really souped up and juiced up off the edge and you let him try to be like a Nick Bonito type of deal. So maybe he could work, but he's factoring more on the outside. He doesn't have, he doesn't have the weight. Oh, I didn't mean to click off of that. I don't think he has the kind of, weight in his shorts to play a 4-eye or kick inside more, so he can be a sub package rusher or play outside a little bit if they go 5 down in odd front type of stuff. Or again, he's got some athleticism. You could go with a tight front. So 3 down on the interior, the 4-eye, 0 and a 4-eye, and have him be kind of the 4th down guy on the line of scrimmage. You could have him drop in coverage a little bit. So I think he has some usefulness. I just haven't seen him produce a lot or be used a lot at all to this point. So kind of counting on him to be something, I think it's a question mark across the board. Maybe it's on him. Maybe it's because of the defense he was in previously, but I think he's more of a guy who's going to be a bookend kind of factoring into a true like edge outside type of presence. Comment here, question here. Are our pass rushers, defensive end or linebacker, going to benefit from the scheme in terms of QB hunting versus setting an edge or staying in a lane? Yes. Jim Leonhard is going to bring simulated pressures, creeper pressures, games with a 4-down front, true blitzes, where the paths are designed to attack the quarterback, where you still have some contain, right? Where you're not just going crazy, but you're attacking the quarterback, getting him off the spot while still having some integrity on top of it. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good combination of integrity and like contain pressures or cops, mixed with still getting him off the spot and attacking the quarterback. Question here. Oh yeah. What would TJ Sanders' place in this defense be if not a 4-eye? That's a great question. I don't think he has one. Again, he's not lining up as a bookend. He's not going to be a Bonito or a Jonathan Cooper, and he's not going to be a nose, right? He's not a DJ Jones. So you have to hope he can play 4-eye, and if he can't play 4-eye, it's going to be a problem. And as Drew says, yeah, Walker is a 4-eye. I do think Walker could be a 4-eye, which is, again, is part of why, or you could work him there a bit, which is part of why I want a true nose tackle. Like, give me a true nose so I can line up Walker at 4-eye. I could even line him up as one of the bookends as a 5. Use Walker in the 4-down looks. I think Walker can moonlight as a true nose or work there. I don't think it's the best use of his skill set, and I don't think it's the best way to kind of stop the run, especially if you're getting downhill stuff or gap scheme stuff. Again, I don't think he's terrible there, but I don't think it's the best use of his skill set or his play style, and getting yourself a true nose, allows Walker to play as a 4-eye or just rotate into different spots and looks. So yeah, 1000%. Very fair. Very fair. Very fair. Very fair. Tony says, what linebackers do you think fit this scheme? Linebackers can be the next one that we're going to get into. So you are seeing into my notes like so many of you others have done. So yeah, defensive end, I think this one's important. And again, the key with the defensive ends are they need alignment versatility, right? It's got to be somebody who can play a 4-eye in these odd front structures, but who can also kick inside to a 1 or a 3 tech in 4-down structures, right? David Onyemata also has the bonus of, he can line up at nose from time to time and hold his own, which is pretty cool. I think he had like 45 snaps at nose last year. And for a 300-pound dude doing that in odd front structures and the way he handled double teams and played the run and played the pass, it was very impressive. I really, really, really like David Onyemata. And those are the 2 types of guys. Again, so the key for that is alignment versatility. Can be a 4-eye in the odd front structures, kick inside to a 1 or a 3 tech in the 4-down stuff or even front stuff. And then having, again, play style, body type of idea, John Franklin Myers, David Onyemata, that type of mold. Or idea there when you're looking at defensive end for what they need in this system and in this scheme. Because again, you're going to get odd front stuff. You are still going to get 4-down even front stuff that you saw with Sean McDermott. You are going to get that, right? You're going to get some gap and a half, maybe even some two gapping too. You're going to get some gap and a half, some two gapping, and some one gap penetrating type of stuff that you got under McDermott, right? You are going to get a variety of these with Jim Leonhard because he is multiple, because he is a hybrid type of guy. So you need players that reflect that multiplicity, that reflect that hybrid idea or that hybrid nature. You need players that are dynamic, versatile, hybrid, any type of synonyms and verbs for that stuff. Next one, since everybody's been asking about it, positional archetypes for linebacker. Give me a second. I'm going to take another sip of ginger ale because my headache is coming back. Okay, back to, man, the ginger ale hits every time. Linebacker. Linebacker is tricky because especially if you go back to his time at Wisconsin, Jim Leonhard's that is, dynamic and or hybrid linebackers were very important to what he did at Wisconsin. Having multiple guys that could effectively rush or effectively drop into coverage at any point mattered a lot and matters in today's NFL, right? Again, tying into what we kind of finished with in the last segment, that increases your multiplicity and the possibilities that an offense has to account for, right? Okay, is this guy rushing? Is this guy dropping? And can he do either of those things and still be effective, right? Because you can have a guy lined up on the edge and be like, oh, is he going to drop or is he going to rush? Well, if he rushes, we don't care, right? Like, I think Dorian Williams is a good example. Dorian Williams, I think, is a really interesting fit in this defense because of his length and his physicality and his play coming forward, right? You know, he has the ability to kind of deconstruct some blocks a bit. He's physical. He's an impactful tackler, right? But it's like, okay, he has some questions in coverage. So, you know, you could put him as one of the inside linebackers, let him just kind of play downhill, plug the A gap and be a headhunter, right? See ball, get ball, type of deal. Play to your physicality, play to your juice, play to your length, all that kind of stuff, right? But you'll have some questions in coverage for him. You could line him up on the edge, which they did at times when they would use him as like a true Sam and line him up against teams that went heavy or used like a heavier surface from an offensive standpoint, and they'd line him up as a Sam and let him play on the edge. He can do that from a run defense standpoint, but you're not worried about Dorian Williams beating one of your tackles one-on-one in a pass rush situation, right? So Dorian Williams is kind of wonky. Like, okay, could he kind of play as one of those inside linebackers in the odd front stuff? Is he more of a sub-package type of player? Where are you playing him as a sub-package guy? Because he's not a true threat as a rusher off the edge. So are you still playing him off ball? You know, what does that look like? Is he a starter? Is he a depth guy? Is he a linebacker 3? Is he a linebacker 2? You know, starting alongside Bernard or whoever. Well, it's probably going to be Bernard at this point. Linebacker, again, is interesting because of what Leonhard used at Wisconsin. You know, the Denver linebackers are a little more straightforward, right? You got Alex Singleton, you got Sternad, and then you got Dre Greenlaw, who played this past year. Those guys aren't completely hybridized or dynamic like the Wisconsin linebackers were, right? Again, the Wisconsin ones that Leonhard wielded, again, it's Van Ginkel, it's Zach Baun, and even Zach Baun played more on the edge at Wisconsin than he did like off ball like he's doing now for Philly. But it was Van Ginkel and Baun and Chenal and Herbig. Again, Herbig was more on the edge, but he would drop every once in a while and wasn't like an off ball guy. Like it's this type of versatility that you need in the linebackers, right? Like, do you have somebody who can line up, you know, on the interior or as an inside linebacker? Do you have somebody who can play downhill and kind of plug the A gap or, you know, meet an offensive lineman, deconstruct a block, shoot a gap, any of that type of stuff in between the tackles, right? Do you have somebody who can play from the A gap to the C gap type of deal, right? And can that same guy also line up on the edge and beat somebody one-on-one, you know, beat a tackle one-on-one from a pass rush standpoint, whether it's with hands or, you know, winning the half-man relationship or going speed to power and going through a guy, all these type of stuff, right? It's a question mark. Linebacker, this is low-hanging fruit. And I know a lot of people have kind of talked about it a bunch already, but this guy that I'm about to say is the idealistic like addition that they need to make at linebacker. He played at Wisconsin underneath Jim Leonhard. It's Leo Chenal. Somebody who, again, he can plug the A gap. He can rush off the edge. He can drop into coverage. He specifically would be phenomenal but also that is the type of kind of play style or skill set or skill sets you're looking for. Someone who can wear multiple hats and wear them at above average levels. Doesn't have to be a unicorn. It just has to be a guy that is effective in multiple ways. And if you had to boil it down to a couple, it's mainly like somebody who can rush and play coverage if you're looking at outside linebacker. And then if you're looking at inside linebacker, it's someone who can play coverage and be downhill. Chenal is the ideal guy or the poster child for this because he literally can do all those things. Like he can rush and he can play coverage and he can play downhill. Like he can do all of those things. He's been so fun in Steve Spagnuolo's defense for years. Tie in again to the multiplicity. Like Spags would use him and put him like head up over the center. He'd put him in the A gap. He'd line him off ball. He'd line him up outside. It was just like, man, like, where's he coming from? What's he going to do? Those are the type of guys you need. Because, again, with the simulated pressures and creeper pressures that Jim Leonhard wants to run, again, for those of you who don't know what that is, simulated pressure is you're still rushing 4, but you are one of those 4 rushers is a non-traditional rusher, and you are dropping a traditional rusher into coverage. So a simulated pressure, easiest way to think of it, you're showing blitz, right? Say you've got 5 guys showing on the line. And if you're a Bills fan, I'll put it into this perspective for you. You're showing 5 at the line, and on the snap, Matt Milano rushes, Ed Oliver rushes, Deion Walker rushes, and TJ Sanders rushes. That's 4. And then you drop Greg Rousseau into coverage, right? So you're bringing Milano and dropping Groot into coverage. So you're bringing a non-traditional rusher and dropping into coverage a traditional rusher. Creeper pressure is the exact same thing, except you're not showing pressure pre-snap. So it'd just be a 4 down front. Say it's Groot, Ed, Walker, and AJ Epinesa. And off ball, you've got Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard. And it just looks like, okay, we have a 4 down front, and Milano and Bernard are going to play off ball. And then on the snap, Milano rushes and Groot drops back again. The idea with these sims and creepers is you can use them to attack protections. You can use them to manipulate how many guys stay into block by making a defense think more is coming than they need to. You can, if you know a team's protection rules, you can get a free rusher off of it. Jim Leonhard is really great at using sims and creepers to attack formations and attack alignments from offenses, right? Like open side, so the field side, the boundary side, where the running back is or where the running back isn't, the tight end side, closed, open, all this kind of stuff. He's very adept at using sims and creepers to attack an offense based on how they come out of the huddle or the personnel grouping that they're in or their tendencies, right? And to be able to do that effectively, the more versatile body types you have, the more hybridized guys you have, the more dynamic guys that you have across the entire board helps tremendously. But linebacker is a big one because of the hats that those linebackers wore for Jim Leonhard while at Wisconsin, because of their versatility, because of how dynamic they were as players, as rush players, coverage players, and as run fitters. So linebacker is really interesting. Charles with a good one here saying Caden Ellis and Quay Walker would be other possibilities, but Chenal is option number 1. Yeah, my joke that I keep making, I said it on GR this morning, is, essentially like your linebackers, you're looking for like, again, it can vary versus the outside guys versus the inside guys, but you're looking for somebody who played at Wisconsin under Jim Leonhard, or you're looking for one of the Georgia linebackers, right? Like get yourself, so Quay Walker is right up there. Good call. Size, athleticism, play downhill, play some coverage. Not going to be a dude who's going to win you one-on-one stuff on the outside, but somebody who can thump and play downhill, but still play some coverage at the same time and have some athleticism to him. And yeah, Caden Ellis kind of fits into that boat as well. Maybe a little more rush opportunity potentially there. So yeah, I like where your head's at, Charles. Good call. Chromatic Wanderer saying this is a good call in this comment here, saying this is a deep year for off-ball linebackers in the draft. A lot of options there. Yes, there is a reason. Who keeps, I think it's CJ Allen, the linebacker from Georgia, who keeps getting mocked to the Bills in the first round of drafts. I really like him coming forward, and he's a leader, play caller, adjuster at Georgia. I haven't watched his tape. This is just from me watching broadcast, and broadcast is a lie, so take this with a grain of salt. But I don't love CJ Allen as a coverage guy right now, but I think he can function as an inside linebacker in a 3-4. And again, he comes from, the tight front in in Jim Leonhard's world is very similar to, that tight or that mint front that Georgia uses. So if you get yourself some backers that have played at Wisconsin under Leonhard or come from Georgia and play in that mint front, then that'll translate, right? Guys that have, the Nolan Smiths of the world, the Quay Walkers of the world, CJ Allen, these type of guys who can kind of bang and wear those hats and wear those roles because you've seen them do it on tape at a high level. I want to go to this comment. Remember how you guys wanted Chase on? How nice would that signing be right now? I don't think I was I wasn't on the Chase on train. So somebody else may have done that, but I don't think it was me. I could be wrong. I do have a big headache and it may be muddying my head here. Another one from Chromatic Wanderer. Yeah, I want to circle back to this about Dorian. Him saying, wouldn't Dorian fit better as an off-ball thumper in this defense? I don't know if he has it mentally to call the defense, though. So, yes, he would fit better as an off-ball thumper, but the issue is still going to be from a coverage standpoint. And granted, both him and Bernard, whoever the two inside linebackers are in the odd front structures that they run, they're going to send him. Like, they're going to be blitzing them. And it depends, too. If it's 3 down and, if it's a true more of like a 3-4, they're going to be blitzing those guys. They're going to send them. If it's more of a 5 down and more of like a 5-2-4 type of alignment, then it's kind of playing more to what they've done already a little bit. But I just don't holistically trust Dorian Williams in coverage in any way right now. Whether even if if the defense stayed the same with McDermott and Babich, right? Even if it was the exact same thing and it was like, oh, Milano's gone this year, it's going to be Dorian and Bernard at the linebacker spots. I don't trust Dorian right now from a coverage standpoint. I do trust him coming forward. Again, like you said, it's like an off-ball thumper, so let him come downhill, plug a gap, meet a running back in the A gap, meet a fullback, tight end, a puller, whatever. I trust him there. I trust him to set an edge from a run defense standpoint, but I don't trust him in coverage. And he's not a one-on-one pass rush threat off the edge. So his versatility is limited and the dynamic that he brings is limited in Leonhard's defense, but honestly, overall, he's very much a see ball, get ball, go be a red shell in Mario Kart type of deal. And I don't mean that negatively. I want to grab this one from Drew, who said, didn't Bernard blitz a lot at Baylor? Does that translate to the scheme? Yes. So Bernard was a very good blitzer coming out of Baylor. It was probably my favorite thing about him, just would absolutely detonate on guys coming forward who picked him up, whether it was an offensive lineman or a running back or tight end or whatever. Was also effective getting to the quarterback. I do think that will translate to this scheme. I think you will see more movement in this defense, in sims, in creepers, run blitzes in general, just overall more movement. I think it will be beneficial to Bernard. Terrell Bernard's whole game. Sorry for all the movement. My headache's coming back, so I'm trying to lessen it or help myself out a little bit here. So sorry if I look crazy on the YouTube stream right now. But Terrell Bernard's whole thing, block deconstruction is always going to be an issue for him, right? He's a smaller type of linebacker. He's like 220 pounds, 223, soaking wet, doesn't have long arms, not a big build, not a big frame. I think he's one of those guys who tested well from a RAS perspective, but I don't think he's an overall like stud of an athlete. He wins by beating blockers to a spot. He wins by processing and then winning with foot speed and angles and getting to a spot, right? If an offensive lineman gets attached to him, he's done. And we saw that a bunch in 2025 because he was injured coming out of camp. He was playing with a bum ankle all year, and he could not beat guys to spots because he didn't have the get off or the juice. He couldn't plant. He couldn't cut. He couldn't change direction. And then when guys did attach to him, he couldn't kind of break down and anchor. He would just kind of get pushed and washed and whatever would happen, right? So I think anything that gets Terrell Bernard moving is beneficial. Anything that allows him to trigger just send him on stuff, whether it's like a run stunt or a run blitz or just a blitz in general, like let him attack, set him on the move. Don't have him just sitting there at the second level, bouncing on the balls of his feet, waiting for an interior offensive lineman to climb to the second level and get a piece of him and potentially put him in the dirt or wash him out of the frame. Rob says, did McDermott ever play around with a 3-4? They brought in a few of those tweeners over the years, Smoot, Austin Johnson, Quentin Jefferson. Every once in a while, you'd see like a bare front or some tight front type of stuff or close to a tight front. But those guys particular, no, not really. They made Dwan Smoot just a traditional defensive end in their even front structures. Austin Johnson was a pretty decent rotational one tech, and they brought him in and had him lose weight so he could play the 3 and play the 1, and he just became largely useless overall. Along with Dwayne Carter, who was more of a 3 tech at Duke. They had him add more weight to be able to play a 3 and a 1, and he became largely useless. And then Quentin Jefferson was more of just an inside penetrator. Again, though, more of like the inside rush that they look for at their defensive tackle stuff. So every once in a while they do some odd front stuff, but not enough to kind of really hit home or play around with it. Oh, I'm so sorry, Justin. I did not see the super chat. Forgive me. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the super chat. And Justin says, I hope Jim has enough blueberries for each muffin. Nice call out to the intro. I appreciate you. Yes. Comment here from IDL716 Casino 100. Yes. Casino is my favorite mob movie ever and one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time. I absolutely love Casino. 1000%. Great comment here from Charles. Oh, my headache. Sorry. Hold on. Charles says another reason they need a true nose tackle is keeping Bernard clean. Yes. That would help if you had a true nose in that rotation, whether he's playing the nose in odd fronts or if he's playing a 3 or a 1, likely, in your even front structures. Keep those linebackers clean, man. Similar idea with getting yourself a defensive end in those 4 eyes, right? Somebody who can eat double teams, who isn't going to get blown off the ball into your inside linebackers at the second level, right? Guys who can mitigate displacement, guys who, got some weight in their shorts, who are gritty, who are sandpaper type of dudes. You just want guys who are a pain in the butt to play against. You want beat 'em up type of guys on the interior, guys who play with pop, who play with violence, who play with juice. It's not just about like guys who can penetrate and guys who can get upfield. It's more of a play style and a skill set on top of it. But yes, fair point there. Charles, Chromatic Wanderer saying, I can see us trading away a few players for mid-round picks who guys aren't great fits, Dorian being one of them, would give us the extra ammo we need to get guys who are better fits. I never like saying I vote to ship someone out, just like I never want to say like I want to vote for someone getting fired because that's still a person with a job. If you gave me a 4th round pick for Dorian Williams, I would take it. I would probably take it. I think that's probably too high to ask. You'd probably get like a 5th, which is a little more questionable. But if you gave me like an early day 3 pick or somehow got a day 2, I would probably take it. Nick saying Casino over Goodfellas. I disagree, but that's a respectable take. I think Goodfellas for me, Goodfellas was always hyped up so much before I ever saw it that I saw it and I was like, okay, this is good. But it was hyped to an impossible degree. So by the time I saw it, I was more annoyed with it than I was like excited to see it. Whereas Casino, I'd never heard anybody talk about it, and I was up late. I don't even remember how old I was when I first saw it, but I was up late one night, and it was on one of the movie channels. Or maybe it was on like TNT. That's a movie they play on TNT a bunch all the time, but it'd be edited. And I saw Casino, and I thought Casino was the coolest thing. Plus, I love Vegas. I've been to Vegas a bunch. I used to go there decently regularly, not from a gambling perspective, but just because I love Vegas and the shows and the shopping and the food and the strip and all that kind of stuff. Casino over Goodfellas all day for me. Casino is 100% my favorite mob movie ever, and it's a top 5 movie for me overall. Joe says you're both wrong. Best mob movie is Shark Tale. Ha ha ha. That's funny. You know what else is funny, Joe? Remember when you came to Buffalo and you didn't get 1 pie pizza and you stabbed me in the back? There you go. There you go, Joe. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that, Joe. I appreciate you. You're a kind soul. Charles says Casino edited. Shame. Yeah, but I've seen it a million times unedited too. I mean, I have it on DVD. I've watched that movie a gajillion times. God, I love that movie. Good times. I want to grab this comment from Jason, who says, "Can we go back in time and grab Ted Washington? Man, that would be great." Joe, stop trying to blame me because you didn't get 1 pie pizza. You went late and they were sold out. That's on you. I'm sorry you chose to go elsewhere. And Jason says, no way, Goodfellas all the way. I recognize I'm in the minority for ranking Casino over Goodfellas or even like Godfather or whatever. I just like Casino. I don't think Goodfellas is bad. My wife loves Goodfellas. I mean, I've probably seen Goodfellas at this point now like over 20 times because, I mean, we've been together we started dating and then have been married, but we've been together for like No, it'll be 14 years this December. I've seen Goodfellas probably over 20 or 30 times at this point because she loves that movie. Good times. And Nicholas says, yeah, I think Joe catches a stray about the pizza situation at least once every episode. 1000%. Because if he's going to come in and, pipe, shoot his mouth off. I'm just kidding. Yeah, Joe says it will be this way until I finally have it. 1000%. Until you get one pie, I am going to continue to ridicule you for stabbing me in the back and coming to Buffalo and not getting it. Especially because you said you were coming to Buffalo and you for the Bills game and you were like, I got to get one pie, blah, blah, blah. And then you didn't get it. I'm like, just an op is what you are. If defensive tackle Caleb Banks is available in the first round, would you be opposed to the Bills taking him? I haven't watched his tape yet, so I cannot comment. From what I have seen, he plays a little high, which I do not like. I don't know how correctable or not correctable that is because I haven't watched his tape, but I have not watched him yet. But that is definitely one of the names that I will be working on from an early standpoint. Ooh, Charles says Bronx Tale. That's my brother's favorite mom movie, I believe. He loves the hell out of Bronx Tale. That's fair. Joe says, I can't wait to come back to Buffalo, go to one pie, and then be told I'm not worthy of it and get kicked out. I'm going to have them put your picture up. So when you go there, there's going to be just mad pies available, and they're not going to serve you. Yeah, so that makes sense for positional archetypes for linebacker. Again, the hybrid nature of his linebackers at Wisconsin and the dynamics that they had were very important and meant a lot. It's going to be tough to recreate that. Like literally, unless you sign like, okay, hey, we're going to sign Leo Chenal. We're going to sign Jack Sanborn. Hey, this is what we're going to do. It's tough to get those type of guys. And so I think you're probably going to lean into more of the defensive line changes and kind of supplement that with one or two linebacker additions through free agency in the draft. I think Leo Chenal would go such a long way because of all the things that he can do. Would just be absolutely tremendous. For them. That is the ideal guy, specifically him. But again, that type of skill set or play style, or I should say versatility. Again, being able to wear multiple hats effectively. And if it's an outside linebacker guy, it's, being able to rush and play coverage. If it's an inside linebacker guy, it's being able to play downhill against the run and also play coverage. Or if you're Leo Chenal, you can do all of those things. You can line up outside, play rush and coverage. You can line up inside and play coverage and also play downhill. That would be fantastic. The Adventures of Pluto Nash. Get real, guys. That's funny. Drew says, are we lacking more in the D-line or linebacker? Linebacker. Yeah, linebacker. Because even though I think Bernard can do some fun things in the defense, I'm still not completely sold on Bernard because I worry so much about the block deconstruction struggles. Even when he had a good year in 2023 and even 2024, if dudes get their hands on him, he gets buried, which scares me. But he's a good coverage player. He's smart as hell. But yeah, I would say linebacker in general, even if everything stayed the same, you don't know who your starting linebacker is opposite of Terrell Bernard. If it's Dorian Williams, Bernard and Williams as a pairing have questions individually and as a duo. But now that you're moving to more of an odd front, hybrid front structure defense, yeah, you don't have enough bodies and you don't have the type of bodies that you need at linebacker. So yeah, I would say linebacker. I thought about it for a minute, but yeah, it's linebacker. It's linebacker because, again, it's twofold. You don't have enough bodies, and the bodies you do have don't tick all those hybrid versatility dynamic boxes that you need to have ticked. Like even Bernard, right? Like Bernard can play coverage, and that's like, okay, he's not really a downhill thumper type of guy, right? And he's also, you can blitz him, but he's not going to win off the edge one-on-one. So he still works, but even he's a little questionable in terms of ticking every box holistically, if that makes sense. Good conversation. Good comments. Oh man, my headache is really coming back. I'm in a bad way. Last one. I want to talk about safety. This one for me is, I want to go back here. This comment. If you had to evaluate the Bills' 2025 draft class after 1 year, what grade would you give? I really hate doing this because I don't want to do things after 1 year, but if I had to, again, we'll go through the picks. I'll go individual. Max Hairston, I don't think counts because he was injured and didn't get enough playing time. But what I did see of Max Hairston, I'd give Max Hairston a B to a B plus. I was very encouraged by Max Hairston's play. TJ Sanders, again, for the wonkiness, we know the variables, but TJ Sanders, I'd give like a D. Landon Jackson, we got absolutely nothing from because of injury. So I guess you can't really give him a grade, but if you did, it would be low. Deion Walker, I will give a B. Jordan Hancock, C. Jackson Hawes, B plus. Dorian Strong, C plus. Maybe B minus. No, C plus. Chase Lunt, meh. Caden Prather, meh. So overall, if I had to give a grade on if I had to give a grade on the whole class after 1 year, C. I'm trying to think of how all those grades average out. A C, maybe a C minus, C, somewhere in that range. Maybe C plus, maybe B minus. If anybody wants to tell me how everything should have averaged out, I can't think great with how much my head hurts right now. But yeah, I'd say probably like a C, somewhere in the C range, low or high, anywhere from a C minus to a C plus. I'm saying C. I'm going C. Drew says selling Hawes short. No, I really like Jackson Hawes, but he's not enough of a pass catcher right now to be a true like dual threat in that regard. If we're talking purely on as a run blocking tight end, Jackson Hawes is an A. But yeah, Spin says, how does Jackson Hawes not get an A plus? His role is to be a blocking tight end. He did amazing as a blocking tight end, and we did get something out of him in the passing game. He did really good as a blocking tight end. I don't think it was as amazing as it maybe got put up to be. I heard some people talking about him as like, he's already the best blocking tight end in football, and I don't think that's true. I think he played well. I gave him a B plus. I don't think like a B plus is a bad grade, but if you're going to be like if you're going to be an A tight end, you have to be like stand out as a blocker and as a pass catcher, or super stand out in one area and then enough in the other. I don't think he was enough as a pass catcher, although I am encouraged and I do think he can do more. And yeah, Drew, I did see that seam catch. It was fantastic. But that one catch does not a dual threat tight end make. But I think a B plus is a good grade. How is that a bad grade for a rookie? And again, A plus, again, if you're tying it strictly to his role, if you're just saying like, hey, he was a blocking tight end, so we're just grading him on blocking. Yeah, he's an A player. But I'm grading him holistically. Like, what can he do as a pass catcher? What can he do as a run blocker? And there were also times too, especially with like Dalton Kincaid being injured, and even when he was playing, not really being able to like play a ton. If Hawes was more of a pass catching threat, you would have seen him be more of a pass catching threat. I think he can be used more as a pass catcher, but he's still limited in that regard. And again, I know he blocked a lot and did well as a blocker, but if you are looking at, ideally what he could have been when Kincaid was out, or when Kincaid was playing and hurt, or also when Palmer was out, think about that, right? Kincaid is out, or when he's playing, he's hurt. Palmer's out. Keon Coleman's not being a thing. You're bringing in Brandon Cooks. If Hawes and Knox could have been a true like standout duo in terms of blockers and pass catchers each, then they would have been fine. So that's why I give him a B plus, which I still think is a really good grade. Oh man, these are good questions. Oh, and Drew says, I think we're giving him extra credit for where he was drafted. Oh, that's very fair. I mean, if we're going, because he was fifth round. Yeah, that's fair. Like, if we're talking about value, I'm talking just about a grade as a player, as a rookie. If we're talking about value, he's an easy A. You got a regular solid contributor in the 5th round. That's a win every day of the week. Wow, Gage saying B plus is generous. No, I think B plus is good. Oh man, everybody on each side. This is interesting. I didn't know this would open up such a can. If you had to choose one poorly graded player to improve the most next year and beyond, who would you choose? Oh boy. I guess if I'm looking at everybody, by default, probably TJ Sanders. Yeah, because he was the only one who played the most. Yeah, probably TJ Sanders. But I don't love that. Good questions. Oh, this is fun. Oh, that made my head hurt a little bit. All this thinking is making my brain hurt. Safety. This one I think is pretty straightforward with safety. The biggest thing that I think will be interesting to note is Denver played a bunch of single high stuff. Jim Leonhard kind of played a bunch of single high stuff when he was at Wisconsin as well. I'm expecting that to continue. And when I say single high, it's multiple. So you get cover 1, which is single high man coverage. You get cover 3, which is single high zone coverage. But you're also going to get match coverage elements with Jim Leonhard across the board, no matter what coverage you're playing. He is a guy who played match coverage stuff at Wisconsin, which was another one of the many reasons, along with the Sims and creepers and hybrid front structures that he used. Many of the reasons why I loved him at Wisconsin. But then with playing, being under Vance Joseph and his staff, again, I talked about it. I read this quote a bunch, but Vance Joseph talking about the defense last year of, what we do is mostly pressure up front with matchup principles on the back end. With what we call, we're giving the player one side of the route, and we preach leverage. If you win your leverage outside and the receiver breaks inside, you're going to have a teammate there. It can look like man, but it's not man. That's the beauty of what we do. That is the secret. So Jim Leonhard, from his time at Wisconsin and from his time in Denver, a lot of match coverage stuff, whether it's single high or it's two high, but they played a bunch of single high in Denver. I wonder how much of that translates to the Bills defense. If they do, man, yeah, Spin says it right here. Oh, we could have had Bishop and Watts, and we would have been set on safeties. 1,000%. The archetype here is purely simple. It's fairly simple. I think Cole Bishop is good comment about Makuba. Yeah, fair. I think Cole Bishop, and I've said this a multitude of times, Cole Bishop is at his best in and around the line of scrimmage. I think he has improved as a deeper safety in both single high and split field looks. I'm not saying to completely stop him from doing that, just like I'm not saying to get a pure center fielder type of guy who can't play down. But I think taking Cole Bishop and having him play as more of a down safety as much as possible, having him play in and around the box, in and around the line of scrimmage, in between the numbers, as more of a big nickel, apex, off ball, robber, buzz, sky, safety, all that kind of stuff. I think that sets him up more for success than anything else. I think he would he's kind of was this a little to a degree, but even more so the Bills version of Hufanga, of Talanoa Hufanga, who's the safety that the Broncos brought in this past year. So again, more of an enforcer, box safety, come downhill, let him do stuff. As Charles says, and I've said this before on the show too, Charles says, in a perfect world, I'd love 2 new safeties with Bishop in the slot, post-Charon Johnson era. 1,000%. I think this isn't just Bills related, but this is, NFL meta, like large-scale league trend type stuff. For me, I think big nickels are going to be the skeleton keys for defenses. Before, if you had a big nickel, it was more like, oh, okay, that's cool. Helps you do different things. But you could just have a regular nickel that could play the run and be fine. That's why Taron Johnson was great. That's why Mike Hilton was great. That's why Kenny Moore was great. You had these true nickels who could play coverage, man and zone to varying degrees, and they could come forward and fit the run, and you'd be fine, and you never had to leave nickel, right? And if you had a big nickel, it was cool, but they'd get subbed out more. Now, with the run game mattering again and being at a premium for offenses, and offenses going condensed and using heavier personnel groupings and formations, and trying to dictate personnel for defenses based off that, having a big nickel, somebody that allows you to fight fire with fire in the run and the pass against almost any personnel grouping is huge. And that also allows you to play situations more than playing personnel, right? Instead of saying like, oh, okay, they're in 22 personnel, but it's second down and they pass 60% of the time on second down. So do we really want to play for the run against the heavy, even though the heavy should kill us against the run and is more of a run indicator? Or are they trying to go heavy to suck us up and bring and invite bodies forward so they can get us in the pass? Are they trying to do some Rams stuff where it's like, hey, we're going with 13 personnel, but we're doing it to throw the football? So I think having a big nickel is just a skeleton key for you, a la And, Kyle Hamilton's a unicorn, but look at what Kyle Hamilton's done for the Ravens defense. Look at what Jalen Petrie has done for the Texans defense, right? These big nickels that allow you to fight fire with fire personnel-wise or situationally. I think Cole Bishop has the chance to be that guy. That's what I thought his best fit was coming out of Utah, because that's kind of what he played as at Utah, was like an apex big nickel monster man type of dude. But yeah, I would love him to be that for the Bills post Taron Johnson era, which may be closer than we think potentially. Nicholas college safety. He's talking about Genesis Smith from Arizona. I watched one game of Genesis Smith, very fluid center fielder. Love him in the post. I don't like him coming forward. I don't like his angles to the ball, and I don't like him as a tackler. But I'm only one game in, so we'll see. I also really like Traden Stukes, who is ironically kind of more of a big nickel, but he can play some safety stuff too. Joey says, I saw you on a different show the other day as a guest. Yeah, I've been on a couple different things, so you probably see me around. Appreciate you coming over here. Charles says Cooper DeJean and Cole Bishop handshake. Gage says, what is a big nickel size-wise? And then Drew says Nick for the Seahawks. Yeah, so think of Kyle Hamilton, Nick Emenwari. You could kind of throw Cooper DeJean into that mold a little bit too, but essentially it's a defensive back. Kind of think of it as like a third safety who just has athleticism to him. So if you're thinking from a size-wise standpoint, 200 plus pounds, but still athletic. You're not looking for a pure thumper, but you're looking for a guy who can move a bit, who can play coverage, but who can also play the run. So yeah, think Kyle Hamilton, think Nick Emenwari. Cooper DeJean, I think, could fall into the big nickel role or world as well. But yeah, you're thinking of like, I would say roughly 200 pounds plus. Oh yeah, Kyle Duggar could kind of fit big nickel type of deal. He's maybe a little more limited in coverage than you'd like. But yeah, essentially big nickel is like a safety size, but with athleticism and good coverage is the easiest way to kind of put it. Oh yeah. Or as Gage says, yeah, and everything backer. Yeah. Like a smaller Matt Milano would be a sweet big nickel. Like a 207 or 8 pound Matt Milano would be a sick big nickel. That's a good way to think of it. Yeah. Where are we? I should probably just look at the screen. Position archetype safety. So yeah, I say all that and answer all these questions to say, oh yeah, Charles says Devin Witherspoon. I think Devin Witherspoon is more of a true nickel, but he plays like he's 6'2", 230 pounds. Yeah, he hits like a freight train and he deconstructs blocks, and he doesn't have that dog in him. He's got, I don't know, a Wolverine in him. He's just an absolute monster. Which is so crazy that they've got him and Nick Emenwari as nickel options. And then they can leave them both on the field with what Job and Woolen do on the outside. Like, man, that Seattle defense is so cool. Yeah, I think you need to pair Cole Bishop with a range-based ball hawking safety. Ideally, someone who's very comfortable as a single high safety, playing in the post, can go, numbers to numbers, or, middle of the field to the sideline as much as you can. Someone who's good reading route distributions, can read the quarterback's shoulders, understands route concepts, how to drive and how to slice. And then too high stuff too, obviously, being able to play those coverage structures as well, but can play and match, can play and man a little bit, has to be good coming forward with their angles, and playing the run. They can't be completely siloed, right? It can't be somebody who's all range and all coverage and can't tackle and can't be in the box, right? Because then that's cool that you have a cool pairing of safety that complements one another. But if there's that siloed, you're not helping yourself, right? As somebody said earlier, I forget who said it. Yeah, I think Spin said it in the chat. If you had Xavier Watts, you'd be set. That would be sick. Like there's your post safety who can tackle. You're good. Too high, single high. He can play in the box. That would be nasty. I really do. I thought they needed this type of skill set again. The way I'm going to keep speaking about it and coining it is a range-based ball hawking safety. I think they needed that to pair with Bishop, even if everything stayed with the defense, if McDermott and Babbage stayed. But even more so now, if you're going to play more single high, you need Kalen Bullock. You need Kalen Bullock, like the safety for the Texans. Oh, I'm glad actually Drew said this. Drew said, but Watts runs a 4.6. I didn't remember what his 40 time was, but don't get caught up with like 40 times or time speed for like, oh, this guy runs a 4.6. He can't have range. He can't cover ground. Micah Hyde, tremendous safety from the post, tremendous coverage safety deep. Not the best athlete, not the fastest dude, wasn't some 97 speed Madden type of dude, but he knew how to take angles to the ball in the air. He knew how to read route distributions, and he knew how to read quarterbacks. That is absolutely tremendous. So yeah, it'd be sick if you had a safety who like, oh, okay, he runs a 4.4, right? Or if he runs a 4.5, that's awesome. But that's why I kind of mentioned it in like the skill set pieces that I'm looking for, right? It's about the processing. So much about safety is two things. It's angles coming forward and going back, right? So angles to the ball, angles to the catch point, angles in your ball tracking, all that kind of stuff, and angles coming forward from two high structures and from single high. If you are that single high post safety, are you able, I can't believe I just took my headphones out. Are you able to kind of run that banana route type of deal from a single high, fit the run, be able to make the play, right? Whether you're coming up and plugging it or taking the good angle and shutting it down. If you're playing it from a two high structure, are you able to come and fit the C gap or whatever your type you're fitting, whether you're legit playing two high and you're kind of running with 7-man spacing, or if you're playing 8-man spacing and you're spinning down from the snap, angles matter a lot. So time speed is great. It's awesome to have that time speed. That's not the end all be all. So don't think because you're a fast dude, you can have good range. Because if you can't process, all the time speed in the world doesn't matter at all. I want to grab this. Oh, this is fair from Jim Jack, who says it turns into a 4.4 if you know where you're going 1,000%. I think you asked this multiple times, Devontae, saying, what do you think about Xavier Nwangpa from Iowa, as we mentioned earlier? I haven't finished safety. So I started with the Arizona duo. I started with Genesis Smith and Traden Stoops. From there, I'm going to Bud Clark from TCU. And then my waking from there. I kind of do everybody in groups of 3. So I'm starting with those 3 safeties and then working my way from there. So I have not made it past. I'm still on with all the coaching change stuff. I've been diving into all this stuff with Leonhard and getting more things together. I've been diving into Jay Valai stuff, the DB's coach from Oklahoma, who I am absolutely stoked on. I am close to being, I shouldn't say close because I love Leonhard. I am extremely hyped for Jay Valai, the Bills DB's coach who's coming from Oklahoma. And I think he's somebody who could be waiting in the wings to take over as defensive coordinator should Jim Leonhard get promoted and go elsewhere. But yeah, I'm not there on other safeties. So forgive me. I apologize. As Nicholas says, great comment here. Elite processing with average speed over average processing with elite speed for safeties. What? Fair comment here from Chromatic Wanderer saying, I love Kamari Ramsey. He can play either safety and play in the slot. Yeah, dude from USC. If I remember correctly, I think I put him into the second bucket because, or not second bucket, but not into the first bucket because, yeah, I was going to say, because he was hurt this past year and majority of his snaps were like in the slot. And, I was already doing that for Stukes in the first group from Arizona. So I was like, okay, I'm going to put Ramsey on the back burner for that. But yeah, fair. 6 foot, 200 plus pounds. Oh God, I would trade so much for Caleb Downs. You have no idea. I know safety isn't the biggest need, right? The Bills need a receiver. The Bills need a premier edge pass rusher. They could use some interior stuff. They could use a linebacker. I would trade so much to get Caleb Downs in round 1. God, he's just so good, man. And he can do anything at safety, which is sick. But yeah, that'd be sick. But yeah, so that's the archetype for safety. I think you need a ball hawk, range-based safety. I'm not completely ruling out Jordan Hancock, but I just think he needs more time on task. You know, he played a mix of like big nickel and safety at Ohio State because of Ransom and Caleb Downs being the other safeties there and how they used those two guys. I just think he needs more time on task. I like his speed. I like the juice that he plays with. He's a physical tackler. But I think he's just struggling reading the game from depth right now at this point, from a pass standpoint and from a run standpoint. His angles aren't there. His processing isn't there. Yeah, I like Hancock. I don't want to go into 2026 with the plan being Jordan Hancock at safety. And then I don't think Taylor Rapp was, the menace that he was made out to be. I know all the friendly fire stuff and haha. He was injured playing all year, and that's why his angles of the ball were rough. But I'm probably going to cut. If I had the choice, I would cut Taylor Rapp. I feel bad saying that because, again, I never want to advocate for somebody losing their job. But you can save like $3 million and cut Taylor Rapp, and it's 600,000 or 700,000 in dead cap. So I would vote to cut Taylor Rapp, and I'm just not putting my chips into Jordan Hancock right now. I'm cool with Hancock being safety 3, continuing to learn, but I think you either draft a starting safety or you sign one. I think he's going to cost too much on the open market, but I like the idea of Kobe Bryant, safety from the Seattle Seahawks. He can play in the post. He can play match coverages. He's played nickel before. He can play down safety. That would be sweet. But I think Kobe Bryant's going to cost too much. I think he's going to get like $15 to $20 million a year. Might even honestly hit 20, depending on what the rest of the market looks like because of what he's done in this defense and the rep that the Seattle defense has. I also know that Seattle, I think, wants to keep him, so maybe he might get paid to stay there. But yeah, you need a ball hawk range-based safety. Guys who make plays on the ball, guys who understand route distributions, can process from depth, take good angles to the ball, good angles to receivers, good angles coming forward, and are sound tacklers. Kobe Bryant's missed tackle rate doubled this year versus last year, but he still had some really sound tackles, and I think he's a good tackler overall, so that kind of messes with that a little bit for me. But those are the archetypes that I'm mainly focusing on right now and how they'll change. So we've got, hold on. Oh, Charles says, I know you love Miami. How awesome is Keontae Scott? Keontae Scott is so thick. Keontae Scott, Ruben Bain, and Akeem Mesidor, nasty. They're so good. And yeah, Scott, especially as a blitzer from the slot, man, Keontae Scott is sick. It is absolutely sick. One of my favorite players watching this year. I was so hyped to watch Miami's defense this year because Bain was healthy. He wasn't healthy last year when he was a true sophomore, and 2 years ago as a true freshman. Well, 3 years ago now. He was so good. But I was so hyped for Bain and then Mesidor and even like Moton on the interior. Like they had some dudes and they brought in 2 new safeties, which both worked out, Poyser and Jacoby Thomas. And then they had the rookie Bryce Fitzgerald, who had so many interceptions this year and played so well. But Keontae Scott was super good. Super, super good. You know me, Charles. Should I reasonably expect the Bills defense to be better in 2026 than in 2025? Yes. I think at worst, the only way this defense isn't like a very good defense or a good defense is if they can't get the right body types in to fully be what Jim Leonhard wants them to be. But I believe in Jim Leonhard so much in terms of installing and building a sound scheme and being flexible with his game planning and calls that, like, worst case scenario, I do think this defense as a run defense and as a pass defense, worst case scenario as I see this defense being middling. Like I see this defense as like worst case scenario, like 14th to 18th overall. And not like, oh, they're 14th to 18th because they're 7th against the pass, but they're 29th against the run. I don't think that's going to happen. I think worst case scenario, they'll be overall a middling defense, but that would be better than what they were this past year because they were putrid against the run. And I think some of their past stuff was a little inflated, but I think you should reasonably expect the Bills defense to be better. If they're not, I will be disappointed because I'm not even reasonably expecting them to be. I am expecting them to be a better defense in 2026 and 2025. And not just because I wanted Jim Leonhard for 3 years. Drew says, if you can splurge on one free agent for this defense, it has to be the defense. Oh man, I need the whole list of like uh free agents, and I'm pulling up. I guess to define splash, like splash for the Bills, because that's different than a splash for kind of anyone else. Probably Kobe Bryant is up there. Oh, I'm looking at a list of guys right now. Oh, um, if I oh no, here's my answer. If I could splurge on one guy, so realistic splurge, David Onyemata, or John Franklin Myers. I think that's like a splash or a splurge, but more realistic. High end for their position grouping type of splurge, Kobe Bryant at safety. Trey Hendrickson is a UFA, which is fun. I would go for Jalen Phillips. Former edge from the Miami Dolphins, currently on the Philadelphia Eagles, or I guess a UFA as of this point now. I believe, yeah, it's a UFA from what I've seen. Jalen Phillips, I know he works in an odd front already. Gives you a premier guy off the edge. I would splash for Jalen Phillips. Splurge. Oh yeah, you did say splurge, not splash. But that would be a splash. Oh, you know what else is a splash? The best pizza in Buffalo, New York. That is One Pie Pizza. Don't be like Joe DeRosa, Cover One member, frequent disguise coverage watcher, and live commenter. Don't be like Joe DeRosa, who came up to Buffalo for a Bills game and didn't get One Pie Pizza. Like an absolute op and a backstabber, he did not get One Pie Pizza. Don't be like Joe DeRosa. When you come to Buffalo, get yourself some of the best pizza in Buffalo and in the country at One Pie Pizza. If you are living in Buffalo, why are you not getting yourself some One Pie Pizza? Get yourself some One Pie Pizza. Sweet sauce pie, cup and char pepperoni, great cheese to sauce ratio. If you get different toppings, they chop them up evenly and sprinkle them over across the entire pie. Homemade blue cheese that is phenomenal. They do a great breakfast pizza. They have a catering division that they can do different events for you, anything you got. And you can get the pizza for that stuff. They do really good salads. They do good like main dishes like chicken and rice and different kinds of mac and cheeses. They are phenomenal in every way, shape, and form. I've had a bunch of family. Well, I get One Pie decently regularly anyway, but I eat so horribly in the winter, so I kind of like take a break from the pizza, which is hard for me. But I had some family staying with us this past weekend. I've got some more family coming in the weekend after upcoming. And so anytime anybody comes in, we get One Pie to kind of be like, hey, like this is the best pizza in Buffalo. Like you should have some, which is awesome. So like I got One Pie last week. Gonna have him get, oh yes, Rob says, all right, I'll try it. You need to get some One Pie pizza. Don't be like Joe DeRosa. Don't be like Joe DeRosa and not get One Pie pizza. You are missing out. Your taste buds are missing out, and the ones you love are missing out. Share that joy with everyone, right? The Super Bowl is this weekend. Maybe you're going to be super upset because the stupid Patriots are in the Super Bowl again. Make yourself feel better with some One Pie pizza, right? Right? Maybe watch the Super Bowl. And you're like, oh man, I hate the Patriots, but this pizza's so good that I forgot about the hate. Or let the hate fuel you into the deliciousness of the pizza. You will not be disappointed getting yourself some One Pie Pizza. They're really good people making really good food. And I say they're really good people because I know them and I know all the initiatives and drives and everything that they do for the city of Buffalo and the community at large. So they're great. Get yourself some One Pie Pizza. Your taste buds will thank you. The city and the community at large will thank you. Get yourself some One Pie Pizza ASAP. I'm going to throw up the banner here, but we're going to grab some comments here. I'm going back. Jason says, Ant, are you okay with a trade for Marvin Harrison Jr.? Obviously, Justin Jefferson would be better, but could that trade help us, or do you think he's a bust or just not a number one wide receiver? You know what's crazy? I haven't watched a ton of Cardinals offense. I don't understand what's going on with Marvin Harrison. I just thought he was such a high floor guy and so good in a multitude of ways that he would be fine. I think he's got the yips. I think a change of scenery could help him. I would welcome Marvin Harrison Jr. into Buffalo off of just what I've seen from different training camp stuff and routing guys up in the season. I think he's got the yips. I think a change of scenery would do him good. I would welcome Marvin Harrison Jr., especially if you can get him. I just don't know what you're going to be able to get him for, right? Like if you are, what's Arizona going to give him up for? Like they just spent a high one on him recently. Are they going to give him for a third? Are they going to ask for a 2? Like it's tough to sell off a high first round pick after 2 years and get like what do you have to give up to get him? But I would welcome Marvin Harrison Jr. Yeah, Rob, you're spot on here. You said I heard Joe eats pizza with a fork. Yeah, Joe's in the comments, but he's lying. I've seen Joe eat pizza with a fork on multiple occasions. It's so weird. Yeah, Joe's a fork user for pizza all day. Fork and knife guy. He just sits, he cuts it up. Yeah, like George Costanza with a chocolate bar or whoever it is with a chocolate bar. Yeah. It was the weirdest thing. You should see Joe. Yeah. Cause I was in New York City with Joe one time. We were walking and we got a New York slice and Joe was like, "Oh, do you guys have any forks and knives?" And we were all like, "What?" Yeah. And Joe on the streets of New York was sitting there eating his pizza with a fork and knife like a herb. Mm. Ronald. Ronald says, Anthony, I have a question. Do you think they will stand Ed Oliver up on the inside as part of their new system? Thank you kindly for your time, service, and videos. Oh, I appreciate the kind words. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoy them. Yes. I expect a lot of fun things with Ed Oliver in this defense. I expect him to be stood up on the inside on known passing down and distances, third down specifically, but known passing down and distances or true or known passing situations or true drop back situations. I expect him to be stood up on the inside. I expect him to see, some stand up stuff on the outside, as like a true edge, again, a la Broncos, Jonathan Cooper, Nick Bonito style. I expect to see him as like a 5 tech or even as, like a 7, line him up outside, kind of let him work a little bit. I think that would be cool. I expect to see that. I expect to see good versatility from him. This is a good comment from Nick. Yeah, you watched that episode when I was on Joe's show under review. Yeah, where he's talking about going to all these forbidden gates and temples and doing all these things that you're not supposed to do. He would go there instead of going to One Pie Pizza. Oh, Jason says probably a 3rd or a 4th. That's what's being reported. I would give a 4th every day of the week for Marvin Harrison Jr. right now. Spin says I eat pizza with a spoon. That's a challenge. Would Jaquan Brisker fit at safety in Leonard's defense? Yes, but I think he's more down safety than range-based ball hawk safety. I think he's more like for like with Bishop than he is different. Wouldn't hate it, but I don't think the complementary aspect works as well. But he's athletic. He has some range, and he can play in the box, but I think it's more same than it is different. Jim talking about Joe saying he uses ranch instead of blue cheese. Yeah, Joe, it's funny. Joe carries ranch with him at all times. When he gets pizza, he pours the ranch on it, and then he eats the pizza with a fork and knife as it's covered in ranch. It's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing. Oh, Nick says Joe is definitely a man. The chat is just turned on you, Joe. This is crazy. Joe is definitely a pineapple pizza guy. I've had pineapple on pizza. I think it's good. Don't yell at me. Danny says, where do you see Groot fitting in? I see him fitting in as a stand-up edge rusher, a la Jonathan Cooper, a la Nick Bonito in these odd front type of looks. I think he'll drop into coverage every now and again because he can do that, and he's shown that he can be pretty adept at doing that. I think they might reduce him down inside in some sub packages and some known passing down in distances or situations or true drop back situations. I like that. And I think that could help him a little bit. I still do think you need a true edge one as a pass rusher to pair him with. I think he's more of a Robin than he is a Batman as a pass rusher. Again, much like I said last year, I'm still in that same boat. And I think Joey Bosa, until he got hurt, very much was the Batman to Groot's Robin. But then he got hurt and the wheels fell off and everything kind of went away, which was really, really, really unfortunate. But yeah, I think Groot will fit in fine and be good. Joe says misinformation. No, that's not true at all. Jason says, any updates on our athletic or training staff? I think they're keeping, if I remember correctly, they're keeping like the same staff, because Bean made some comment about like the self-inflicted injuries. And then everybody was like, well, why did you bring back the same staff? Claude says, Joey Bosa doesn't fit in this defense, right? Yeah, not really. He's more of a 4-down, an even front edge rusher than he is more of an odd front type of guy. You could use him on the edge, but you're just not going to want to drop him a lot. But I mean, hey, Khalil Mack has done it, and he's not a dropper. Khalil Mack would be an interesting bring in. Again, not a juice guy, but Khalil Mack is just still awesome. Has Ed Oliver got some Chris Jones in him as a 3-4 end? I just think that's too lofty. I mean, Chris Jones was borderline like defensive MVP level for several years. I don't think Ed has been that, or maybe even has that in him. So I'm going to say no, but he's got upside. K.M. Moore says, how about the safety from Oregon to pair with Bishop? Oh, Dylan Thieneman, who went from Purdue to Oregon this past year. I have to watch tape on him. I want to know how much of his range is there, because I think he played a lot of like 3 high safety, Tampa player type stuff, playing top down. So I have questions on it. I have to watch him within his skill set, but I think he's more, for me, I think he's more like Bishop than he is rangy ball hawk guy, which again, he's athletic, so it could work, but I have to watch the tape on him. Oh, comment from Nate on Facebook, who says, who do you, 1, think, and 2, wish is our wide receiver 1 next year? Oh, man. Who do I wish? I wish it was Alec Pierce, just because from the realistic standpoint, right? He's a free agent. He can be had, but he's going to cost too much money. So I wish it was Alec Pierce. I've just really liked him also coming out of Cincinnati. I've liked him for years. I think it's going to be a rookie from the draft. I just think it's going to be too hard for, actually, you know what? No, I'm going to stick kind of what I've been saying. I think the Bills are going to trade for a wide receiver 1. I don't know who it is. I don't want A.J. Brown, because I don't know. It just seems like he kind of quit on Philly, but to each their own. I think they're going to trade for a wide receiver 1. I just don't know who, and I don't know from where. I'd like Chris Olave. A lot of wide receiver comments coming in. Ted Hurst, Jeremy Bernard. Fair. Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be fun. Charles says he's on the Denzel Boston train. I have not. The only wide receiver I've watched so far is Casey Concepcion, who I like, don't love, but I like him. So Jason says, no, A.J. Brown. We don't need Diggs 2.0. I'm still going to, I know how everything ended with Diggs. Diggs is just ultra competitive and wants to win. Like, Diggs leaving Buffalo for me was more akin to somebody getting a better job offer elsewhere for more money and thinking that company was better, so they wanted to leave their current job and go get that new job. A.J. Brown, I think, is more like, I don't want to say this because I don't know him and I'm not in Philly like that, but like I think his motivations are more selfish than they are competitive. But we'll see. Curtis says, how much would you trade for Justin Jefferson? A decent chunk. I would rather trade more for Myles Garrett. But I don't know. I see my thing. I don't think they need Justin Jefferson if they got him sick. I don't think they need that high of a wide receiver 1. You just need a wide receiver 1. You just need to have that. Or it could be a high-end wide receiver 2. You just need that at the top of the depth chart. You need somebody with a vertical presence and who can win one-on-one. That's it. Somebody who's a threat to the point where they're like, we got to cover that guy. which is why it like makes me iffy on how much I trade for Justin Jefferson, because obviously Justin Jefferson is sick. Like he's either the first or second best receiver in the NFL. But like, would Justin Jefferson being on their team be awesome? Absolutely. Do they need him? No. Like they just need a wide receiver 1 or a high end 2. That's it. That's it. But I would trade a decent chunk for Justin Jefferson because that would be insane. Oh man, Terry McLaurin would be sick, Charles. I would love Terry McLaurin. Oh, that made my head hurt. I yelled too loudly. Terry McLaurin would be sick. I love Terry McLaurin. I hope you folks enjoyed this episode. If you have not already, please, 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 and thank you, drop a like on this video if you have not already. Likes are the lifeblood of these streams here on YouTube. So if you enjoyed this content or you enjoyed the conversation or whatever have you, if you would be so kind, please drop a like on this video here on YouTube before you go. Or if you're watching not live, drop a like here on this video while you're watching this on YouTube, whether live or not. If you're listening on one of the audio platforms, that's cool too. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage. Again, if you enjoyed this content, tell your family and friends and loved ones about it. If you hated this content or you hate me, tell your enemies and try and make them watch this show or this episode and ruin their day. Turn on notifications for the Disguise Coverage playlist here on YouTube. Subscribe to the Cover One channel. Hope you folks enjoyed this episode. We will continue to talk about archetype fits for this Bills defense, free agent options at multiple positions, obviously draft prospects, all of those things. I will probably look again to incorporate film back into this episode. Into the show. It's so tough because of the YouTube licensing rules now and how wonky that gets. But yeah, I will be incorporating. Yeah. I mean, you guys know I watch tape. If you want more tape stuff, get at me on Twitter, pro__ant. Get at me on Blue Sky, pro_ant, no underscores there, just PROANT. My socials are essentially all just posting of film left and right. But yeah, I'm excited. Fun stuff. A lot of unknowns for this defense. A lot of questions in some good ways and some fun ways that we're going to talk about and analyze and bring some certainty to as we go forward in this offseason. I hope you folks continue to join me live every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern here on YouTube to break it all down, or listening on the audio platforms, wherever you got. Thank you to everybody who tuned in live. I really appreciate you. Thank you to everybody in the chat for the engagement, the back and forth, the questions from myself, the engagement with each other. Thank you very much to Jason for your super chats, all 3 of them. Thank you very much to Justin for your super chat. Thank you to everybody who watched live and joined me here. Thank you to everybody who watched post live on YouTube. Thank you to anyone who listened on any audio platform or podcasting app, whatever form or fashion your episode consumption comes in. I'm sincerely grateful for it and thankful for it. Thank you to everybody who gave me kind words throughout the episode about my appearance on WGR today. Thank you for everybody who's given me kind words throughout the closing here and the episode in general. I see it all. I appreciate all of it. And it sincerely means more than you know. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night. Enjoy the rest of your week. I will see you in the film room tomorrow. And I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. I will see you when I see you. Don't be like Joe DeRosa and eat your pizza with a fork and knife and ranch and not get one pie pizza. Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.